really been a joy, but I've got to tell you that probably the biggest joy of the campaign is really getting to see how people interact in their own homes and how they can be so generous in opening their homes to our campaign and what we're trying to accomplish. And so, if you will, I'd like to start out by just giving them a warm thank you and having you give them a round of applause. I have what I brought, which my lovely assistant Faye will have. You thank you, Faye. Just a small token of appreciation, and I know Jerome probably has several copies of this around the house, but you can never have too many great coffee table books about the wonderful history and the present that we live in here in New Mexico. So it's with a token of gratitude that I present this book to the Padilla family.
Thank you. The history of New Mexico.
That's right. That's right. Past and present. So we respect the past, and we're fortunate to live in the present. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the future. My name is Brian Colon. I know about 1/3 of you in the room, which is a really good sign. We have moved into the next phase of our campaign, and that is to make sure that we reach out to parts of the community and people in the community that we don't have a relationship with. And Teresa and Jerome and Selena have allowed us to do that today, along with our co-host Sandra and Cliff. They're back there. They're the Richardsons. Give them a hand for helping us put this together. And also Dianza Sapien and her husband Joseph, who's not on the wheels today. Thank you for your help. But it's these types of folks that allow me to meet terrific people like Alfonso and Denise, his wife, who came out. Have no idea who I am. Daryl, who works out at Intel, who I had a great visit with earlier today, and so many of you that I didn't know before today. So what I want to do is take about 2 minutes to tell you about who I am, what I've done, and then where we'd like to take the next. All right. So feel free to pull up a chair, Mark. I'm going to go along.
Just giving my knee a break.
That's right. That's right. Mark's heard me speak before. That's why he pulled up a chair. See, he knows.
Every time there's a gap, he says, "I have a few words I want to share."
That's right. That's right. I grew up in Valencia County, just south of here, and I had two parents who were disabled, and frankly, and very bluntly, I grew up in poverty. I'm the first in my family to have been able to go to college, thanks to my family's hard work and encouragement. From the time I was 10 years old, I've been working. I worked at a flea market every single weekend. At the time I was 10 years old, I can remember my dad coming into my room at 5:30 in the morning saying it's time to go to work. Most kids were getting up to watch some cartoons. I was getting up to go pull boxes out of the shed so that my parents could put a little money in their pocket and some food on the table. And I am a product of democratic values when I stand before you. And it's really why I enjoyed serving as chairman of the Democratic Party for 3 years. I grew up on all the programs that Democrats are proud of, whether it's the commodities programs, whether it's health care that my parents both relied upon. My father had muscular dystrophy. He passed away at the young age of 49. I watched that man die every day of my life. It was a horrible disease, but I know that it was extended because democratic values allowed him to receive health care that he otherwise would not have had. I know that when I lived in Section 8 housing, it was Democrats that advocated so that this little 12-year-old boy could have a roof over his head. It was democratic values that allowed me, as a young man, to be able to say, yes, I can go to college, even though my parents don't have 2 nickels to run together. It was democratic values that allowed me to have Pell Grants and apply for student loans, and allowed me for 10 years to try and get a degree, which I finally got from New Mexico State. It was democratic values that then allowed me to go on to law school and become the person that I am today. Democratic values are about helping people that need help, but they're also about empowering individuals to break the cycle of poverty. And I couldn't be more proud than I am today to be able to stand before you as someone who's broken that cycle of poverty. Because that's what being a Democrat. That's what being a Democrat is all about. And I couldn't have done that without the support of community, a wonderful family, and people that believed in democratic values. That's why I ran for state chair, and that's why I'm running for lieutenant governor. Because we need people on the 4th floor of the roundhouse that use that as the lens they look through every day they go to work. The lens I look through every day when I go to work is going to be that my son Rafael, who's 12 years old, will never know what poverty is. He will never experience Section 8 housing. He'll never experience an EBT card. He'll never experience Pell Grants because, frankly, mom and dad are going to have to pay for college. But that's a good thing, right? Because we've broken that cycle of poverty. He understands when he writes a letter to Santa and says, can you please, for Christmas, give my Grandma Shelley's fund at the Albuquerque Community Foundation, can you give it $100? He understands the value of reinvesting in the community at 12 years old. He understands what it is to be philanthropic, and he's 12 years old. When I was 12 years old, I had no concept of that. What a better state we will be as the next generation continues to have a different lens they look through than that their parents had to look through. That's what this campaign's all about. It's about understanding that while New Mexico has a lot of good industry on I-25, the entire state doesn't sit on I-25. We have 33 beautiful counties. And in rural New Mexico, people are hurting. They're hurting more than they're hurting in urban New Mexico. I can assure you. When I go up to places like Amalia, Costilla, or when I go over to Cuesta, the urban center of that area, those folks are hurting. The mine's closing down. They need new economic development. They need another investment in their children and in the education system. And if we don't have somebody on the fourth floor that believes that rural New Mexico is just as important as urban New Mexico, our state will continue to be at the level of poverty it is today. So this campaign is really about three things. It's about economic development, making sure that we can get jobs, jobs, jobs. It's the number one thing on everybody's mind, no matter where I go. And then it's about the education system. Now I tell people that every day I start and end my day with an educator. Now the good thing for the campaign is that it's the same educator, it's my wife. And she's in that classroom every day in public school. She teaches at Van Buren Middle School, which is in one of the deepest pockets of poverty in Albuquerque public schools. She knows what it is to have teacher conferences all day and sit across from an empty chair. Because those children are not being raised by two parents. Most frequently they're being raised by single parents, or they're being raised by their grandparents. And frankly, whoever's raising them doesn't have the time to come to a parent-teacher conference because they're trying to be at a job to keep the lights on. That's what Aleli deals with every day in the classroom. So education obviously is very important to me. My son goes to public schools. I'm very excited that right now he's in a bilingual immersion charter school that just started called Cien Aguas. He was in bilingual immersion at Longfellow Elementary. He speaks beautiful Spanish. I'm very proud of him. But I will tell you that my vision on education, and Aleli is a proud member of the AFT, the Federation of Teachers, and sometimes we get a little uncomfortable with talking about these things, but I think we have to have the conversation about change, opportunity, and accountability in education. We cannot continue to do things the way we've always done them and expect a different result. We've got to say, okay, what is this charter school doing that's a little bit different than we're having public schools do, traditional public schools do, and try and capitalize on those innovative ideas. And not just charter schools that cherry pick the students. I'm talking about charter schools that have lottery entrance, and they're still performing better. Now I will guess a couple things are true. You've got smaller classrooms, right? You've got more resources in the classroom for the teachers. That's what's happening at these charter schools. I don't have to have a blue ribbon task force to tell me the smaller classrooms are going to be beneficial for students. But now we have not just anecdotal data like I have in my head, but we have actual hard data that shows that that stuff makes a difference. So we've got to have that conversation about having a different approach and transforming education in New Mexico. The president of the National Education Association has a great line. He says, look, we have been trying to fix the education system for far too long. If we don't transform the education system, we will never make progress. We will continue to have a 40% dropout rate. And our children are not failing in schools, but we are failing our children if we're not willing to have that conversation. And I hope you'll agree with me. And if you agree with me, I hope you'll stand with me as I fight for economic development in New Mexico, whether it be renewable energy, green jobs, or whether it be making sure that we're paying attention to rural New Mexico just as frequently as we're paying attention to urban New Mexico. Fighting for education, and the third leg of that stool is about ethics and transparency in government. One of the things that I've always stood for is making sure that we have transparency. Whether it was when I was chairman of the Democratic Party, or whether it was in the numerous businesses that I opened as I grew up and tried to get that college degree that took me 10 years. I've always been about transparency and inclusivity. I believe that we bring the energy to this campaign that's necessary to make sure that we win in November. I believe that a Dennis Cologne ticket is the way to victory in November. I hope that you'll agree with me.